Welcome to the post-cabinet brief for Thursday, 4th of August, 2016. This morning, the brief will be given by the Minister of State, the Honorable Joseph Harmon. Mr. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Let me welcome back those persons who had been on vacation and other duties abroad. It's a pleasure seeing you all here today. The post-cabinet press briefing today covers matters that were discussed at cabinet on Tuesday, August the 2nd. Our cabinet accepted the proposal of the Honorable Vice President and Minister of Foreign Affairs and agreed to the establishment of a National Border Institute. The establishment of this institute will enable research to ensure the maintenance of Guyana territorial integrity, as well as to address issues relating to our air, space, and continental shelf. Cabinet agreed that the institute should be a semi-autonomous agency under the management of a board of directors, with the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs as chairman initially. The directors will be drawn from key agencies relevant to the objectives of the institute, such as the Attorney General's Chamber, the Guyana Defense Force, Maritime Administration Department, National Archives of Guyana, the University of Guyana, Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission. It was also agreed to solicit the assistance of former ambassadors and academics with relevant experience in border matters. Cabinet considered proposals submitted by the Honorable Vice President and Minister of Foreign Affairs for changes in the administration and regulation of the remigration scheme. After due consideration, Cabinet approved draft regulations and amendment to the Customs Act with regards to the following issues. One, the transfer of the administration of the remigration scheme from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Ministry of Citizenship. Two, the redrafting of the definition of settler in the Customs Act to allow the Ministry of Citizenship to determine both settler status and remigrant status. To provide tax concessions for students who spend at least 4 years abroad, as well as returning foreign service officers who spend time abroad on official duty. It is expected that these changes in the regulation and administration of the remigration scheme will result in enhanced oversight and more efficient management of the scheme. Cabinet approves the appointment of the Board of Directors for the National Advisory Council on Occupational Safety and Health for a period of 1 year from August 2016 to July 2017. The directors appointed are Mr. Andrew Garnett as the chairperson and representatives from the Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Public Security, Consultative Association of Guyanese Industries, Guyana Trades Union Congress, University of Guyana, National Insurance Scheme, Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Pesticides and Toxic Control Board, the Guyana National Bureau of Standards, as well as representatives from the Gold and Diamond Miners Association, the Guyana Manufacturers Association, and the Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union. Cabinet welcomed and approved the appointment of His Excellency Jose Kinfranco as the non-resident ambassador to the plurinational state of Bolivia to Guyana. Ambassador Franco is currently his country's resident ambassador to Brazil. Cabinet noted that diplomatic relations were established between Guyana and Bolivia in March 1987, and also noted that our two countries work very closely within the Union of South American Nations, UNASUR, and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, on matters relating to social cohesion and poverty reduction. Cabinet granted its approval to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to commence negotiations with the Government of Colombia for the abolition of visa requirements for holders of ordinary passports. This is in keeping with the ongoing discussions and arrangements within the Union of South American Nations, UNASUR, with regard to the free movement of citizens within South America. It is expected that this reciprocal visa waiver arrangement will facilitate ease of travel for the purpose of tourism, trade, and investment between Guyana and Colombia. Cabinet approved the participation in a regional technical workshop for the development of the State of the Convention Area Report, SOCAR, to be held in Kingston, Jamaica, from August 15th to the 17th, 2016. SOCAR had been set up to address the monitoring and assessment of the state of the marine environment of the wider Caribbean region. The workshop will address key environmental issues within the wider Caribbean region, such as the threat to the wider Caribbean ecosystems, the impact of land-based sources of pollution on the marine environment, and the improvement of impaired watershed and coastal area conditions of countries within the wider Caribbean area. Mr. Frank Grogan, Environmental Officer 2 of the Water Quality Unit of the Environment Protection Agency, will represent Guyana at the workshop. Cabinet continued to grant its objection to contracts as follows. For the construction of a secondary school at Warramuri in Region 1, Barima-Waini, the sum of $15,212,000, a contract awarded to Sattar Mohammed and Son Construction and Hardware Supplies. Warramuri is an indigenous people's village of about 200 households and a population of about 1,600 residents. Approximately 265 secondary school students from the community, as well as from the surrounding communities of Para, Pimple Creek, Haimabara, and Manawarim, will benefit from the construction of this secondary school. They presently attend the Santa Rosa Secondary School in Maruca, which is approximately 25 miles away. Cabinet gave its objection for the completion of construction and rehabilitation of internal roads at Madhya, Region Number 8. Those of you who visited Madhya recently will recognize the crying need for this work. Cabinet noted that it had previously awarded a contract for the construction of this road to SRT Mining Inc., but upon subsequent review by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, it was found that the contractor lacked the capacity to complete that work. Cabinet therefore gave its objection to two contracts in that regard. One for the supply of stone in the sum of $89,600,000 to Metallica CC Guyana Inc. And secondly, for the construction, for the completion of the work in the sum of $46,200,000 to JR Ranch Incorporated. Cabinet also gave its objection for the construction of a bridge at Tabachinga, Region Number 9, for the sum of $18,155,000. This bridge, as those of you who would have traveled to Region 9 will recognize the importance of this bridge. And this is going to be a solid concrete structure that will be used by the residents who come to and from Lethem. That contract was awarded to Theodore Farrier General Contracting Services. Cabinet also gave its objection for the construction of a reinforced concrete bridge at Urukuru, Mabruma, Region Number 1, with a sum of $16,377,000. That contract was awarded to Builders Hardware and General Supplies. Cabinet also gave its objection for the engagement of facilitators for the Hinterland Employment Youth Service, HAYS, programs in Region 1, from Regions 1 to 10, under the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. And these were as follows. In Region 1, the sum of $48,685,000. Region 2, $16,835,000. Region 3, $1,365,000. Region 4, $1,820,000. Region 5, $1,820,000. Region 6, $3,640,000. Region 7, $20,930,000. Region 8, $17,290,000. Region 9, $46,865,000. And Region 10, $9,100,000, a total of $168,350,000. These sums awarded will enable the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs to pay facilitators in the respective regional areas a monthly stipend of $65,000 per month for the period May to December 2016. And finally, Cabinet gave its no objection for the supply of juice under the National School Feeding Program in the Ministry of Education in the sum of $181,714,000, contract awarded to Demerara Distillers Limited. Those are the matters, colleagues, members of the media, that were discussed and objections given during our cabinet meeting of the 2nd of August 2016. I take your questions now.
Minister Harmon, could you say with respect to the proposed border institute whether Minister Odin Ishmael, not Minister, former Ambassador Odin Ishmael and former Ambassador Rudy Antonelli are among the persons who will be considered to sit on the board or be part of that think tank? And can you say whether at all you were ever written to concerning a fraud involving the international donor funds? And as I have the microphone, sir, could you say what is the status of the public servants' wages negotiations, and when will the Public Service Appellate Tribunal be established?
That's 5 questions, I think. Let me take that. 4? It sounds like 5.
In Chinese, it may be 5.
I asked this gentleman in the front row. Okay, the first question has to do with the establishment of the Border Institute. This is a very important matter in our view, because the Border Institute is the repository of all documents, maps, charts, and so on that has to do with the territorial integrity issues which we deal with on the Suriname border, the Venezuelan border issues, the issues in the EEZ. All of these are matters which are of importance to us. The Vice President and Minister of Foreign Affairs pointed to the condition under which these records were being kept and the fact that it was really in a deplorable state and that we were basically having to rely on institutional memory of some persons who had been involved in previous negotiations. So the idea is that all of these matters will be placed under one institute. All documents, maps, charts, and so on will be there and displayed in a proper way, and that all of the institutional memory that people have will be called upon. So that the names that you mentioned, Mr. Shibral, will be among others that we are going to consult. And it's going to be a wide consultation. All Guyanese who have some input to make, we will look forward to that, and we want to make sure that the Institute becomes what it is meant to be, because years going forward, when many of us would have passed away, there must be some clear record there as to what happened in the past, what happened in 2016, and the years going forward. So that institute is an important part of our historical records. The other one that you asked about, the Public Service Appellate Tribunal, or the wages. Yes, the matter is still not concluded. We are at the stage where at the last sitting of the wages negotiation teams, they had arrived at a position which required at that stage a proposal from the Guyana Public Service Union. That proposal, we expect, will come from the union, and in the event that there is no further movement, that there is a process by which His Excellency can become involved so that we can move it forward. But I can still say that there is still communication between the teams of the government side and the Guyana Public Service Union, and we trust that these discussions will lead to a favorable outcome in these negotiations. The Public Service Appellate Tribunal, I don't have a status report on that, but I can undertake to get that for you.
Donor funds, were you ever written to about concerning any fraud involving international donor funds?
No. In fact, I raised this matter yesterday after a report was made in the Starbuck News about a source close to Mr. Omar Sharif stating that he had reported this matter to me and that it had become it was the reason why he was sent on leave. I made a statement on the matter yesterday pointing out that that was not so. And in fact, I spoke to Mr. Sharif at 7:45 this morning, and he did say to me that he never made such a statement to anybody. So that I will have to get this ghostwriter who is given that information. But certainly that is Mr. Sharif's statement to me as of this morning at 7:45.
The Guyana government has never been written to, as far as you know, with respect to any fraud involved in international.
Not as far as I'm aware. No.
Good morning, Mr. Harmon. Zoe Fraser, Starbuck News. Sir, could you update us on the parking meter contract? Was it discussed at Cabinet yesterday? And I was told that government has found nothing wrong with the contract, and the company has been given the go-ahead to do whatever they have to do and are scheduled to bring their first shipment of the meters in mid-September. And secondly, can you update us on the issue with the steel involving Mr. Tawari?
The what?
The steel.
CEO?
Steel. Mr. Tiwari?
The STEEL, steel. It sounds like if you're saying CEO and CEO and all of that, yes. Okay, first of all, let me say that with respect to the investigation into that matter, I spoke to the Ministry of Health this morning, and that they were meeting, and I understand that that is one of the issues that they're being dealt with this morning with the minister and his team of people at the Ministry of Public Health. That's as far as I can see on that. The parking meter, yes, in fact, it did come up at Cabinet yesterday. Two reports, as I indicated to you, were submitted, one by the Ministry of Finance and the other by the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. The sum total of the finding was that that the contract was not, there was nothing illegal about the contract. B, that it appeared from a review of the documents that the terms and conditions, they were onerous and they were heavily in favor of the concessionaire. That the recommendation of the Minister of Legal Affairs is that an accountant be engaged by the council to review this contract insofar as the the rates and the fees are concerned and to advise it. These recommendations of cabinet were given to the Minister of Communities, who has overall jurisdiction for the councils. And speaking to Minister Bulkan this morning, he's advised me that he has written the council accordingly, advising them about the two documents that had been prepared by the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Legal Affairs, and recommending a course of action to be taken, as was the recommendation of the Minister of Legal Affairs.
When are they expected to come back with the outcome of that process?
Well, Cabinet did not set a deadline for that to happen, but it basically gave the Minister of Communities the full scope to deal with the matter and the Georgetown City Council.
Why was an accountant engaged if the Ministry of Finance had a chance to look at it? Why is it now that the recommendation is for you to engage an accountant?
Well, they were reviewing the contract. They were reviewing the contract, and this is the recommendation that has come out of the review of the contract. And so this is what they are saying that needs to be done, and this is what the recommendation be made to the Minister of Communities for him to follow up with the council.
And that can be done at finance?
Well, it
Even
is
a
not,
third
you
party?
remember the council is an independent statutory, is an independent body. The government does not overreach or intervene in these matters in that way. The government makes some clear recommendations. The president, as you know, had stated that the importance of Georgetown to central government is one of the reasons why we have been so concerned about these issues about parking meters and so on. But as a general principle, we do not interfere in the actions or the activities of these councils unless they are patently illegal and unlawful.
Adam Harris, Prime News. Sir, remigrant scheme. Traditionally, remigrants are people who were signaling that they were coming home. However, there was a discovery that some people use the scheme, pop in, did what they had to do, and go out. Now you're amending the legislation to ensure what?
Well, it's to ensure better oversight of the laws. The laws have always been there, but there's been abuse of it by persons who have, as you said, lived abroad, came for a short period, stated that they were remigrants, collected the concessions, and then left. I think that was one of the source of one such investigations recently. As you know, the GRA had conducted with some persons who were in the media itself. But this idea is to ensure that it's a sort of a one-stop shop, that people don't have to run here and run all over the place to make sure that they understand what they are entitled to. And B, it is clarifying who are the persons that are entitled and what you need to do to bring yourself within the law. So that is really what it's all about. And there's a very thorough paper that was presented by Vice President Greenidge on the matter, having consulted with several persons, and these are the recommendations that have come out.
Follow up quickly, sir. So is there going to be a clause which will allow for penalty revocation of certain concessions should people persist in doing what they were doing in the past?
Well, the law has always been there. As I said, it allows for greater oversight and enforcement of it. Those laws are there. But what has happened in the past is that the officials, in my view, the officials have actually, in some cases, deliberately misinterpreted these provisions, and in some cases extended the provisions beyond what was contemplated in the law. So it's really basic, allowing for greater oversight of the process and to ensure that the laws are upheld.
Good morning, Minister. Stacey Carmichael-James, Newsroom. Minister Jordan had said at a recent meeting that Cabinet had agreed that all information on borrowers from the University of Guyana would eventually be placed at immigration points and that a desk would be set up. Could you say which Cabinet meeting this was discussed and how soon are they moving to you will be moving to implement this system?
Yes, the matter was in fact discussed at Cabinet. Might have been not this one, the one before. And it's really a matter of trying to ensure that people honor their obligations. There is no intention at all in what has been proposed to affect the constitutional right of any person to free travel in and out of Guyana. It's no sort of blacklisted in that way. It is really an intention, an attempt to ensure that people who've actually utilized monies that the state has provided, that they pay it back. Because the student loan is a revolving fund. And that if you take out of it and you don't put back in it, you are preventing somebody who is entitled to the benefit of the fund from using it. So we have looked at this matter. In fact, there was a subcommittee of cabinet established under the chairmanship of Minister Jordan to look at it and to see how best we can bring some regularity to it. There's a large sum of money that's outstanding there that has really put the loan, the scheme into some serious problems. So it is really about trying to give the student loan program back some buoyancy so that we can continue to extend that loan to young people who are now coming into the system. This area has nothing to do with the people who are in the system now, because these are persons who have actually benefited from the system and are now basically refusing to pay. They knew when they signed on to the program that they were required to repay these sums of money. So it's a way of doing so. And we are not using a sort of the sledgehammer approach to it. We're using a sort of a soft sell conversion, if you want to put it that way, to encourage people to pay. And so it's not we are going to lock up people and all these kinds of things. It's about encouraging you to honor your obligations under the law and to recognize that if you do not repay, you are preventing young people who are now coming into the system from benefiting from those things which you benefited from.
But what is such a nice thing? I had 2 loans and I couldn't leave this country at will. There was the clause in place that if you owe, you don't leave at will. You have to get permission from Ministry of Public Service Ministry. So how's it was?
Those, in fact, in previous years, you had to get a tax compliance before you leave Guyana. And that was part of the tax compliance process. We don't have that anymore. But if, in fact, you have an obligation to the Public Service Department, then it is your responsibility to clear that obligation. But on the face of it, we cannot just put a list there at the airport and say stop anybody from traveling. There is a legal process involved, and there are constitutional rights which you have to basically cater for.
So what exactly, sir, Gordon Mosley News Source, what exactly is the position of the government? Because you have the finance minister saying one thing, and then you have 2 ministers appearing before this parliamentary committee and saying they have no clue about what he is speaking about.
No, I don't think the minister said that. The minister said that there was no such decision of the cabinet. That is what the minister said, and that is correct. A proposal was given to cabinet based on the findings of a cabinet subcommittee that had been established to look at how best we can recoup these large sums of money that had been out there that were not paid by persons who enjoy the facility.
So as it is now,
and the recommendations that had been made were several recommendations, right? One was about advertisement, encouraging people to come in and pay. And Minister Jordan would have said that some persons have actually responded and have come in to pay. There are recommendations about maybe publishing the names of those persons in the newspapers who owe, and that might encourage them to come in. There are recommendations about a larger PR program, taking it to the communities where these people live and asking that they come and enter into some arrangement or agreement with the student loan facility to work out a payment plan. So all of these are, in my view, as I said, soft sell methods that would try to encourage people to come and pay and honor their obligations. If all of that fails, remember you still have a contract, and that it is within the right of the government to enforce that contract. What I'm saying now is that there is no decision that had been made at Cabinet that anybody will be prevented from leaving the country at this point in time.
So what is the policy of travel? Do you still, the system up to what, 2 years ago was if you owed large sums, you got approval from PSM and then you could leave and come back. Is that still in place?
It is still in place.
Isn't that something different?
For
It
scholarship
is
students?
if you have
And
if you have a contract
Yeah.
with the Guyana Public Service, with the Public Service Department, which represents the government. If you have a contract and you are bonded, that is the important issue, and you seek to leave without clearing that bond, then you've basically committed a breach of that contract for which the Public Service Department can take action. So most people in the public service understand that if they're going to travel overseas, that they have to have permission, maybe they have to lodge some surety so that they can travel to cover that amount of money which is owed to the Public Service Department. That as relates to contracts and bonding by the Public Service Department. Are we talking now about we're talking about a student loan facility at the university. And so there are two separate things.
I have just two final questions. The Border Institute, can you say how much it would cost and whether or not Cabinet will be going to Parliament for additional funds to have that addressed, and how soon we can see that up and running? And also, any updates on when consultations for the SARU legislation will begin, and how widespread those consultations will be?
Yes, thank you. The Border Institute, Cabinet approved the proposals for it. The final details as to costs and these things will have to be worked out. Certainly, it is going to be a charge on the government, and therefore it will have to come to the National Assembly for funds to be allocated for that purpose. So, well, I don't have a startup date. Remember what the proposals require engagement by several persons who I noted and agencies. So they have to come together to look at the terms and conditions as to how it will work, the composition of the board, and matters of that nature. But I believe that because of the urgency of this matter, the Vice President and Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs has been impressed upon the need for it to happen very quickly. The SARU consultations will be widespread. The draft legislation, I think Professor Thomas made a statement on the matter in the news this week, that the matter had been with the Minister of Legal Affairs, that the bulk of the work is finished according to him. This is what I recognize him to be saying, and that the consultations will be all across the country. It'll be wide consultations. And as you know, in introducing any new legislation, that has been what the format that we've employed recently, and where the Ministry of Legal Affairs would engage stakeholders, get their views on it, take those views into account before we finalize the bill to take it to the National Assembly.
This will be after recess, or before recess?
I doubt whether, because Parliament goes into recess on the 10th of August, and that's just a few days away. So that kind of consultation cannot be completed within 6 days to get it before the National Assembly before the 10th. That would not happen.
Minister Harmon, Suraj Narayan, Kaijor News. I have a few questions. The GPHC, there are some issues going on there pertaining to a forensic audit that was conducted. Now, there were some findings. Were Cabinet aware of some of these findings? And could you say what is the way forward? I was made to understand that The audit had cleared certain allegations against the former CEO, Michael Khan, and there seems to be some issue into reinstating him. What is your position on that?
Well, that did not come up at Cabinet on the last day we met. But certainly that is a matter that is in the news. It's a matter that is engaging the public's attention. But Cabinet had not been informed by the Minister of Health that a decision had been taken for anyone to resume duties based on a clearance by the audit, because the audit would have made several recommendations, and that might have been just one of the recommendations that had been made. And sometimes when we use this word clear, the sport has been cleared, we have to look at it very carefully, because you might be cleared of one allegation, but there are several others there that have not been addressed. So we'd have to look at that very carefully, but I can say to you, I think there is something in the media about the appointment of a deputy CEO. You recognize that the board of the Georgetown Public Hospital had made a statement on the matter that they have not made any such appointment, and that in the view of the chairman, the appointment, if made, is null and void. You also recognize there was a statement by the permanent secretary of the ministry this morning that he did not make the appointment. So as far as the government is concerned, there's no such appointment.
Well, Minister Harmon, sir, could you say when will the Kanu Dataram report be released? And what are the costs of the commissions of inquiry into the Dataram Kanu matter, the drop-in center, and the Public Service Commission of Inquiry?
Well, at each stage along the way, I gave you those figures before. The Dataram report, I don't have the exact figures now, but I can get that to you. But I did give you the figures for the Public Service Commission of Inquiry. In fact, I'd given you the figures for all of the inquiries prior to the Dataram report. So that's already in the public domain, and I made those statements right here. The Dataram report, Minister of Public Security, it is really his call as to when he's going to release it, because there's some sensitive information in that report, and I think it's a matter of how you treat with the information in there, as it would affect reputations, persons who are in office, and so on, because these are allegations that have been made against public officials, and the investigation will have actually dealt with the allegations. Already out there, the allegations would have actually been put into the public domain, and therefore sometimes the public make a judgment based on what has been put out there in the allegation. So that the inquiry now has to deal with those allegations, it has to deal with public perceptions, and it has to deal with the fact that there are people who are in public office who can be affected or damaged by these reports. So the report, as I said, is completed. It's handed over to the Minister of Public Security, and he will make a determination as to when he's going to release the report to the public.
In light of what you said there, could we expect a major shakeup at Kanu?
I do not know whether there's going to be a major shakeup at Kanu. What I can say is that the architecture of the fight against drugs will undergo some change with the establishment of a national anti-narcotic agency that will see greater levels of coordination of the agencies that are involved in the fight against illegal drugs. You're going to see that, and that is something that's going to happen soon. So that if you are saying that a shakeup, I'm not saying there's going to be a shakeup, I'm saying that there's going to be greater coordination of the fight against drugs, so that the drug dealers and so on out there can be assured that the government is going to take a very firm stance on the matter, and that we're going to increase the side of coordination of these agencies. Because, you know, there are at least 3 or 4 agencies that are involved. You have Kanu, you have the Guyana Revenue Authority, you have the Guyana Police Force Anti-Narcotic Agency, and there's, I think, one other, but at least 3. right? At least. So you need some coordination of the activities of these entities if we are to ensure that the fight against drugs is intensified as the president wants it to be.
Mr. Harmon, quickly with regards to the president and the drug fight, is there any particular reason why, after more than a year in office, he has not yet met with the head of KANU?
He has not met with the head of KANU.
Never.
The president meets with the Minister of Public Security on a weekly basis. The Minister of Public Security has under his charge several entities. The Guyana Police Force, KANU, Guyana Fire Service, Guyana Prison Service, all of these are services which are under the minister. And so the president doesn't have to meet with each and every one of these heads. He meets with the Minister of Public Security on a weekly basis. And what is happening now is that a drug strategy master plan is now out there, which will have public consultation, and we're basically going to move in a direction of enforcing those conditions on the drug strategy master plan. So it is really not, the president doesn't have to meet every head of department. He will do so when he's ready to do so. But he meets with the minister who's responsible for that every week, and I can say to you that a part of the agenda of the National Security Committee meeting is a report on drugs every week. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.